Take us through the night. Did you guys come up on the bus, but Wilt drove up?
Well, yeah, Wilt drove up. Wilt always drove. He was. It was a strange night. For one thing, you have to imagine that we're playing in Hershey, Pennsylvania. I think everybody probably knows all of these facts. Hershey, Pennsylvania. Away from from Philadelphia. Chocolate wafting through the air, small arena, and hardly anybody there, probably about 4,500 people, maybe not even 5,000 people at the game. No reporters from any of the major media there, just the guy from the local paper, and Wilt scores 100 points. And nobody, actually, not a lot of people on either team realized that this was happening. Until probably Dave Zinkoff, who was the announcer for Philadelphia Warriors at that time, announced 80 points, 82 points or something like that going into the fourth quarter. And then we all realized that this was going to happen. And it was comical because from that point on, all the shots went to Wilt, all the passes went to Wilt, and everybody on the Knicks team tried to get the ball to any player except Wilt. They would foul anybody. They just tried their best to keep the ball away from Wilt, and he was not going to go for it. Finally, we wound up throwing the ball from out of bounds all the way down the court to Wilt.
Tom has probably told you everything that happened. There's two things that I talk about when I talk about that game that are most important. Number one, we won the game, contrary to popular belief of a lot of people. And the other thing is, Wilt tried to come out of the game before he got to 100 points because the game was won, and many people say, well, he was trying to rub it in. He was not trying to rub it in. But Frank McGuire had made a pact with Wilt that we didn't know about. Maybe Tom knew about it. And he told Wilt he was going to average 50 points that year, which he did. And we didn't know about it. And then he also act like he didn't know Wilt when Wilt was trying to come out of the game. He kept looking away from him. And Wilt was tired and wanted to come out of the game because, I don't know if you remember this, Tom, but they didn't get rooms for us back then. And
No.
And it wasn't like the NBA is today. So we were just kind of walking around aimlessly in
there was a hallway in the back.
And a hallway in the back.
Hallway in the back.
And Wilt was actually
water fountains
playing, went to a penny arcade, and he was shooting the gun. And he told me afterwards, he said that he was really hot. He said that he was, mowing everything down. And I told him, yeah, but you mowed a lot of things down in the game tonight too. But he actually tried to come out of the game, and he was not trying to rub it in. So, but Frank had made a pact with Wilt. Maybe Tom knew about this, but I didn't. He made a pact with Wilt that he was going to average 50 points. And it was easy for him to do because look who he's playing with. It was probably pretty easy for him to average 50 points since I was on the floor with him. So, but it was a great time, and I think one of the things that was really important.
Speak for yourself, man.
No,
I was a hot rookie.
Well, I was a rookie the year before you were a rookie, and I learned
you're older than I am now.
I learned something very quickly. When you got the big fellow on your team, you don't have to worry too much about scoring basketball points. So it was just a great time. In fact, I talked to his sister today, and we had a long talk, and she told me to tell you all hello. And she said, if you have anything you want to ask her, I'll give you the number and you can call her. So, there's not a lot to talk about in this game. There's two things that I talk about. Like I said, we won the game, and Wilt tried to come out of the game before he got 100 points. And there are a couple people on the New York side. I'm from New Jersey, as you all know, and I wasn't able to go in New York for a long time because they were stopping us at the border. The other thing that happened with Wilt, and I don't know if Tom knew this, but he came up with Willie Knowles and Johnny Green. And Wilt said that he had to sit in the back of his car, and he acted like he was asleep the whole time going back to New York because he said they threatened to throw him out the car at some point coming down from Pennsylvania. So it was just a great time. And for those of us who knew him and knew him well, it was just a great thrill for me to be a part of it.
Tell me a little bit about when you get to the Warriors and you see Wilt
What were your thoughts about his offensive game and ability when you started to become his teammate?
When I started to become his teammate?
Right.
Well, I was absolutely in awe of Wilt when I went back to Philadelphia. I was out here from the West Coast, and the Lakers had just moved out to Los Angeles. So most of my experience about professional basketball had to do with the old AAU, Peoria Cats and all of those teams, the AAU teams. So when I went back cold. I had no idea. I didn't have a good idea what the NBA was all about. I knew it was the best, but I had no idea about these players. The minute I met Wilt, of course, and you know, Wilt has taken so many bad raps from, you know, in terms of public relations. He was one of the nicest guys in the world, and he treated me, rookie, with a great deal of respect, and I thought he was just a fine guy. I had no problem. We had a really terrific team, and at that particular year, if it had not been for one small defensive mistake, we would have won. Very small, very significant defensive mistake. I'm not Al, but a player who shall not be named did not guard his man properly. And had that not happened, we would have beaten the Celtics that year, my rookie year, and we had slaughtered Los Angeles that year. We beat them every game that season in '61, and we would have beat them for sure.
At what point did the Knicks start getting ticked off? And at what point did they start thinking?
I think when they threw the ball up at the beginning of the game.
No, probably about third.
They were really
third quarter, right? Middle of the third quarter.
About middle of third. But
fourth quarter, they were frantic.
But you have to know, and I am a good friend, and Richie. I don't know if you know Richie Guerin. Ex-Marine, tough guy. Don't ever talk to him about this game. When I see him, I walk the other way, and I want to make sure I don't talk to him. But, when you have a guy like Wilt, who was such a great player, people have, this skewed view of him. And I can tell some stories of things that he did off the floor and on the floor. But when you talk about great players, it's hard for people to fathom what he did on a basketball court. It really is. But, I've often said if you take 10 things and say there are 10 things that you need to be a great player, and if you do 9 of them, I think you're pretty darn good. So the one that they'd always look at is, well, he doesn't shoot free throws well, except that night he made 28 out of 32, which is pretty good, I think. So, I struggle when people say, well, who did he score 100 points again? I don't care who he scored 100 points again. To score 100 points in an NBA basketball game, you're pretty good. You're pretty good. And, I can tell stories about him, unrelated to basketball and things that he did that people have a hard time believing, because it bothers me when I tell people something about him. They say, well, you're saying that because you was his friend. And so it's telling me I can't be objective about a friend. But, when you talk about playing basketball, which was a part of what he did, and some of the other things he did, it was just a pleasure to be a friend and to be on the same court with him. Probably the people who were most happiest about that were the players. I don't know if Tom remembered this, but we had these locker rooms, the old locker rooms where we were sitting, and Wilt was sitting next to me, and he used to sweat profusely, and he was reading the stat sheet. And Guy and Tom and myself and a few of us, we were very, very happy that, he scored 100 points. And he was the only guy who had this down look on his face. And I'm wondering, I said, big fella, what's the matter? What are you upset about? He said, well, I never thought I'd take 60 shots in a ball game. And we, in my infinite wisdom, said, yeah, but you made 36 of them, so we'll take that any day of the week. But, for those of us who had an opportunity to play with him and know him as a person, I just can't say enough great things about him.
Do you think it's ever going to happen again where somebody's going to even be able to do something like that?
Well, I think Kobe got 82 at one point. I don't think that anyone is physically able to do that. Plus, the other thing I don't think will happen is I don't think other coaches will allow it. For instance, Tom will agree with this. The only team that really, really had a man play in front of Wilt, a man play in back of Wilt, was Red Auerbach in the Boston Celtics. And if you talk to any of the Knickerbockers, and there's a couple I don't want to talk to because they're very upset about that game.
Oh, they're Richie Guerin.
Richie
Guerin won't
Richie's
talk
my
about
friend,
it.
but
Yeah.
I don't want to tell him about the game. But I don't think many teams had an organized double team back then other than the Celtics, because the way the game is supposed to be played, if two men play one, you pass the ball and move to someone else. And if you listen to the players of the Knickerbockers, those who had to play him, he probably ended up with about 20 points. I mean, people saying, well, he got 4 baskets off of me and maybe a free throw or 2. And another guy said, yeah, but I remember I fouled him once and he made a shot. And I'm going, where did 100 points come from? It had to come from somebody. But, it was one of those things that you just have to say, and I'm sure Tom will agree with this, it was just a pleasure to be a part of it. People make a big deal about the fact that I didn't miss a shot. It's very, very simple. If 5 guys play one man, you should get open once in a while. So what happened is, I was just kind of sneaking around a little bit, and then they go play Wilt. You 5 go over there and give me a basket once in a while. And Tom can't say anything because the same thing happened to him. So, but it was just a great, great thrill for me to be a part of that.
Now, there was some story that he left with 46 seconds left, and there was some controversy whether they actually finished the game or not. What happened?
Well, you're still a young man. As you get older, you start forgetting things, and there are a few things I forgot. But the one thing that did happen, the fans all came on the floor, and they had to get them off the floor. And I think they had 30 or 40 seconds left where they had to kind of continue the ball game. But we actually thought the game was over. And I think one of the biggest disappointments about that game is that it was up in Hershey, where we used to have training camp, and they had the circus in Convention Hall, so they don't have any film of it. And if you notice, all you ever see is a piece of paper with 100 on it. And our publicity person wrote it on a piece of paper and gave it to Wilt, and he held it up. I wish he had given it to me, but I was just happy to be a part of the game. Now, as far as the ball is concerned, the year we won the championship here, Wilt came to a function that they had for me, and he gave me a basketball. And he had a quote on it. He had it made up, and the quote is, "To Al, who did all the right things at the wrong time," because I didn't miss a shot that night and hold 9 yards. And a huge, I won't tell you who he is because he's probably still mad at me. He had on national TV that I had the ball. And so I called him and I said, I don't have the ball. So I don't think he believed me. And my mother and father always told me to be truthful in everything I did. So I tried to convince him that I didn't have the ball. And he had on a television show that I had the ball and I didn't want to let people know about it. Well, those of you who are old basketball, well, I won't say old, or basketball aficionados, who knew who the commissioner was, the commissioner's name is on the ball. And it was Maurice Parloff. Well, the ball I have does not have Maurice Parloff's name on it. It had the next commissioner, so I was able to get away with that. But the most important thing, and I think Tom will agree to this, I can say this because Tom had 1 point less than I had, so.
There's some question about that, Al.
Well, you missed a free throw, but I didn't miss any. So what happened was, it's important, and I think Tom will agree with this 100%. We won the game, which a lot of people didn't want to believe. And number 2, the big fella tried to come out of the game. I just spoke to his sister today. She told me to tell you all though. And if you want to ask her any questions, she wasn't there, but she knew what happened. So it was just a great game, and one that I was very, very happy to be a part of because, when you talk about great, great people, it starts with the big fella.